Greetings and good evening. I am Nanaiya, your host this evening of Nanaiya Spirit Medicine. Welcome. And in last week's episode, you were not just a body, the 7 layers of the etheric body and the 9 portals of the human form. We opened up something foundational there, not conceptually, but structurally. And then we moved beyond identity as flesh and bone and stepped into the understanding that the human system is layered, responsive, and in constant communication with fields that extend far beyond what is visible here. And then we spoke about the etheric layers not as abstract ideas, but as functional aspects of your being, each one interacting with information, translating frequency, and regulating how reality is perceived and experienced through the body. We also touched on the portals, those points within the human form that receive, transmit, and exchange energy and information, quietly shaping what you feel, what you think, and what you believe in is real. And today we are not starting a new conversation. We are stepping deeper into the one that you have already entered. So this is part 2. But before we do that, I would like you to come into your body with me. Get some grounding here. Not as a concept, but as a lived experience, okay? So if you're masculine energy, please sit upright. Place your left hand over the center of your heart and your right hand over the left. And if you're feminine divine energy, just swap it around. We're going to take controlled breaths slowly in through the nose. We're going to hold for 4 seconds at the apex of that breath that we take in, dropping our shoulders and relaxing into it. It's called suspending the breath. And then we're going to breathe out the same way we breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, slow and controlled. Okay, we're going to clear that frequency together. Let's begin. In through the nose. Drop your shoulders and suspend. Release. Push all that air out. Drop your shoulders, suspend. Release. That was good. Pop my neck. Thank you. Okay, that's good because we need to come into this space together and let our body settle into a state where it's not bracing, not anticipating, not defending, just aware. Okay? Because what we are about to explore does not require belief. It requires presence, and presence is what allows you to observe without distortion. So there's a threshold of perception here, and there is a question that most people do not ask. Not because it lacks importance, but because something in them instinctively resists it. What if what you are seeing is not always coming from the physical environment? What if some of what you perceive is not reflected back to you from the external world, but is instead being introduced into your force field of awareness in a way that mimics external reality? That is the threshold, the place where perception begins to separate from assumption. Because most people, they move through life with an unspoken agreement every day. Oh, if I can see it, it must be physically there. Or if I can hear it, it must have a source in the material world. Or if I can feel it, it must be originating from within my body. But your system does not actually confirm any of that. It interprets this. And interpretation is not the same as origin. Okay, so now we're going to go into apparitions. This is a misunderstood phenomenon. I want to bring some clarity around it, okay? So the word apparition has been reduced excuse me, to something almost theatrical, in my opinion. Ghost stories, hauntings, fragments of the past replaying themselves without awareness, something eerie, something to avoid, something to explain away or dramatize. But that definition is incomplete. An apparition is not defined by what it is. It is defined by how it is perceived. Because one person may see it and another person may not. There's a reason for that. An apparition occurs when something non-physical organizes itself in a way that it becomes detectable within the human sensory system. It is not inherently residual, and it is not inherently disconnected from intelligence. So in many cases, what is being perceived is not a leftover imprint of something that once existed, but a current expression of consciousness that has the capacity to form itself into something recognizable. That's powerful. And this is where the discomfort comes in. Not because the concept is dangerous, but because it removes the illusion that perception is passive. If something can appear, it means something is structuring itself into form. If something is structuring itself into form, it is not random. It is directional, and direction implies intention, or at the very least awareness around that intention. And the body is an interpreter. It's not the authority of this experience. Your body is not verifying reality. It is translating it. Your eyes do not confirm what is, physically present. They convert light into electrical signals that your brain assembles into images. I mean, that's fact. Your ears do not prove the existence of sound. They translate vibration into recognizable patterns. Your skin does not determine whether something is physically touching you. It registers shifts in pressure, temperature, and field disturbance, a frequency. So everything you experience passes through a system of interpretation. And that system does not inherently distinguish between what is physically sourced and what is frequency-based. It responds to input. If the input meets the threshold for recognition, your system will render it into something you can perceive. This is not a flaw, per se. I think it is the design of the human design, the human form, which means that anything capable of presenting itself within those thresholds has the potential to be experienced as real. Not imagined or symbolic, but experientially real. That's powerful. And then we go into avatars. I'm going to step into something that is not external to you at all. The concept of the avatar. This word has been simplified, especially in modern culture, into something digital. A representation, a character, a projection within a simulated environment. But the deeper function of an avatar is far more precise. An avatar is a form through which consciousness operates. And you are already one. Your body is not the origin of your awareness. It is the interface through which awareness engages with this environment. You are not inside of your body in the way that you have been taught to believe. You are expressed through it. Big difference. And when you begin to understand that, something shifts inside of you. Because if you are capable of interfacing with form in order to experience a physical world, then the mechanism itself is not unique. It is systematic. It is systemic. Which means consciousness is not limited to one form, one location, or one expression. It can extend, it can project. It can organize itself into different points of interaction. And that is where the idea of avatars expands beyond the human body into something much broader. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of projected intelligence. Okay, that's consciousness in motion. And projected intelligence is not a theory, it is a function. So in its ability for consciousness to extend beyond a singular point of awareness and present itself in a way that can be perceived, interacted with, or experienced. This does not have to always appear as a full visual manifestation. Sometimes it is a presence that you cannot explain but cannot ignore. Feeling someone around you. Sometimes it's a voice that does not originate from your internal dialogue. Sometimes it's a form, clear or subtle, that appears within your field of vision without physically anchoring itself. And sometimes it's information that enters your awareness with a clarity that does not match your own thought patterns. This is where discernment becomes essential. Because not everything that arises within your awareness is generated by you. Some of it is relational, coming from interactions with others. Some of it is environmental, arising from the fields you must move through every day. And some of it is interactive, or originating from consciousness that is capable of engaging beyond a physical constraint. And this is not something to fear, but it is something to understand with precision. So there's multi-layered awareness. It's a system that expands. And you have been trained to focus on a single stream of awareness in your life. Linear thought, immediate sensation, observable reality. But your system is not singular. It is multi-layered. 7 layers to be exact. And you are capable of processing multiple channels of information simultaneously. But most of them are filtered out to maintain functional stability. When that filtering shifts, whether through experience, trauma, expansion, or intentional awareness, you begin to notice what was always present but previously unregistered. This can feel very disorienting. Not because something is wrong, okay, but because something is being revealed. You may sense presence where before there was only space. You may perceive movement where nothing physical is occurring. You may receive information in ways that do not follow logical sequencing. And the instinct is often to question your stability. Like, is that me? Am I thinking that? Must be. There's nobody else around. But what is actually happening is that your system is expanding its bandwidth. You are not losing clarity. You are encountering more data. Download. You know? So there is a distinction here that must be understood clearly. Influence is constant. You are influenced by everything. People, environments, emotional states, information fields. This is part of being an open, responsive system. Influence is not a threat. It is a condition of interaction. Control, however, is something entirely different. Control requires sustained access, weakened boundaries, and a level of internal disconnection that most people do not experience. And yet, control is often what people fear first. Not because it is common, but because fear amplifies what is least understood. All the time. And fear is a useless emotion. When your system is grounded, when you understand how perception works, how information enters, how your body responds, you become far less susceptible to confusion. And confusion is where vulnerability lives. I was there once. I am no longer in a state of confusion. There is clarity here. Clarity restores sovereignty. Not through resistance, but through understanding. But why is this becoming visible now, you say? Nothing we are discussing is new here. What is changing is the awareness around the knowledge. The line between physical And non-physical interaction has always been existed, excuse me, but it has not always been acknowledged. Now that, that boundary is becoming more permeable, not because reality is shifting, but because perception is, it makes it a lot easier for people to understand. And technology is beginning to mirror this, creating simulations, projections, interfaces that reflect what has always been possible through consciousness alone. And human awareness is beginning to catch up really fast. As it does, it's an amazing, most sophisticated mechanism on the planet is a human form. And it experiences that were once dismissed or misunderstood are becoming more common, more recognized, more openly discussed and accepted. But without a grounded framework, it is easy to misinterpret, to label something incorrectly, to react instead of observe. And that is where clarity becomes essential. It's not belief, it's not fear, it's just the understanding around everything. So please take a breath with me for a moment again. Let's get grounded. Release. Good. So what you perceive is not always originating from where you think it is. But that does not make it dangerous, my friends. It makes it intelligible. It means there is a system at work, one that you are part of, not separate from. You are not just observing reality, you are participating in the interface that makes perception possible. And when you begin to understand that, something softens. You stop trying to control, the outcome of every experience. You stop reacting to what you do not yet understand. And you begin to observe with clarity. Take another breath, please, and let that settle in. Good. Before you leave this space, just know there is a clearing available to you right now. You do not have to force it. You do not have to reach for it. By simply being present here this evening, your system begins to recalibrate, to release what does not belong to you, and to return to its own natural coherence. It's been a pleasure, my friends, to speak with you this evening. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe and share this video with friends. And join me here every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for a new message. So please walk softly, be gentle with yourself and others, and stay on the path of light. Blessings to you.